Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess and in today's tutorial we are going to be learning how to shape the face of our amigurumi. Shaping the face of your amigurumi can give your stuffy more personality and it makes it look a little bit more realistic, as realistic as it can look being a stuffed animal. So let's get into it. So for today's project, I've just worked up a swatch here. I'm just working on our mallard duck pattern, and I thought I would use this pattern to show you how I shape the face. We're also going to need some black yarn, or really any type of medium weight yarn. It does not have to be black. And I'm going to show you how to shape the face, and I'll also show you how I do my eyebrows to give the duck a little bit more personality. And then we're going to need a darning needle. So I just use these metal darning needles. They're my favorite. They don't bend when you work with them, which is why I like them the most. So once you have your supplies, we can get started. Okay, so basically the logic behind our face shaping is what we want to do is we want to just bring the eyes in ever so slightly. And that's going to create some definition in the front. You can kind of see over the top here. And I just find that if you just leave them like this, there's no personality. They just are there. But when you bring them in a little bit, it just gives it that extra little touch that I think really makes it that much better. So what I do first is I just take my darning needle and my yarn. I usually just use black because that's what I have. So once we have our darning needle attached, the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take the needle and we're going to insert it into the top center of the eye, as close to the eye as we possibly can get. So I'm just going to insert it right there. Next, I'm going to push it over to the other eye in the exact same spot if I can. So as close to the eye as I can get. And I'm going to pull that through. So now you should have 2 strands of yarn on your eyes, one on each eye. After that, we're going to keep this one attached to our darning needle. And we're going to now go down below to the bottom center of the eye, and we're going to insert our darning needle here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to push it back. So if you're working on a project that has a bad side or a side that's not going to be seen, I would push your yarn towards that side. Now, for my project, I don't have a bad side. Everything's going to be seen here. So I'm just going to push mine back towards the back of the head here. And I'm just going to pull that through, and I'm going to take my darning needle off. Now we want this strand that we made right here to be on the inside of the eye, like that. Then we're going to go to the other side and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to put our darning needle on here. And I'm just going to insert it into the bottom center of my eye. And I'm going to push this one back too. Now again, if you are working with a piece where you're going to have it hidden, I would offset your yarn a little bit by 1 stitch. And the reason for that is I find if you offset it, you're going to have a little bit more hold to your face shaping. But what it's going to do is it's going to cause a little indent in your work, which is why you can only do this if you have a piece of area that's not going to be seen. So let's say the bottom of the head before you sew it onto the body, you could put it there. But for me, again, because I don't have that, I'm just going to put it through the exact same hole that I did with the original piece. And I'm just going to pull that through. So this is what we're looking like so far. So I just have a strand of black yarn on this side, and I have a strand of black yarn on this side. And they're both popping out at the back in the same stitch. So once we're at that point, all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my tails on the other side and I'm going to pull them. And you can see that it's brought in my eyes. Now, how much you bring it in, that's really personal preference. If it's too tight, like if you make it way too tight, it's going to look strange, that's for sure. So if you've made it too tight, sometimes I'll just take my hook here and I'll just release it a little bit and loosen it. And you basically are just gonna play around with it until you get the shape that you want. And then once you have that shape, which I think I do, I'm pretty happy with how that looks, I'm just gonna tie a knot on the back to make sure that that's secured. Just like to tie 3 or 4 knots. I'm then just going to cut my tails here. And using a small crochet hook, I'm just going to grab these tails and pull them through. Now, I shouldn't have any dimpling of my project here, but what will happen sometimes is if you're like me and you can't offset your stitches, you may notice a little bit of loosening of your shaping, but I usually do mine a tiny bit tighter than I like it, and then it usually loosens to the perfect shape straight after once I tie it and pull it into the body. So that is shaping the face, shaping the eyes, and getting it ready for me to put on the nose. So next we're going to put on the eyebrows. Again, I think eyebrows really make give your amigurumi a little bit more personality and make it look more realistic. And I think it just adds this cuteness factor that really makes them so much cuter, I think. So again, we're going to use our darning needle and our medium weight yarn. For me, I'm just going to use the black again. And what I like to do for the eyebrow is I'm going to take my needle here and I'm going to insert it kind of on the side of the head, away from where I'm doing the eyebrows. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to push it to be about 1 stitch away from the top or from the eye and on the top row of where the eye sits, if you can see that. So here's the top of the eye. I'm in the same row as the top of the eye sits, about 1 stitch away. I'm going to pull that through. Now I personally like to do 2 rows, so going up 2 rows for my eyebrows, and I also like to go to a point that's about centered on the eye, which for me is about right here. So 2 rows up and about 1.5 to 2 stitches over is where I usually like to put my eyebrows. Then I'm going to push this over to the other side in the exact same spot. So 2 rows up from the top of the eye here, and I'm going to pull that through. So there's 1 eyebrow. Now the great thing about these, if you don't like it, you can just take it out and redo it. But now my goal is to make it the same on the other side. So I just put it here and we'll see if that works out. And then I'm going to go to the top of my eye here, which is right here. And this is the row that I want to go into, about 1 stitch away from my eye. So about here. Then I'm going to push it over to where I started with my original strand here. And there are my eyebrows. So once I'm happy with my eyebrow placement, I'm just going to take my strands here and I'm going to lightly knot. You don't want to make it too tight because it will pull your final work. And especially if you're working with fluffy yarn or plush yarn like I do, this yarn, this medium weight yarn, can really get lost. So don't tie it too tight. And then I just like to cut my end here a little bit so it's not so long. And then again, I'm just going to take my crochet hook and I'm just going to weave that in. Then I just like to take my darning needle and I just like to go underneath and just give that a little bit of a pull just to make sure it's visible. And there are my eyebrows attached. I hope this tutorial was really helpful for you to learn how to shape the face of your amigurumi. Let me know in the comments down below if it was helpful and if there's any other videos you're hoping to see or things you're hoping to learn about in regards to how to make amigurumi. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a lovely day and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!